我并不想让我的内心充满仇恨，可是我实在不能理解他们为什么一定要对我这样，他们为什么一定要用如此残酷的手段来对待我。
I'm investigating rumors that protesters in China are being locked up in psychiatric hospitals by police.
而后发生的事情就让我感到特别的害怕了。他们同样是把我五花大绑的绑在床上。
I've been told that they're given antipsychotic drugs.
You shared with me that you were forced to take medication for your supposed mental illness. Do you have any proof of the medication?
Yes, it's here.
It looks like a lot of medication.
这个吃了就是你的精神就可以就混乱。
I'm trying to understand why doctors would work with police to hospitalize someone for speaking out against the authorities.
然后他们就是说我寻衅滋事了。
I'm working with an underground network to uncover a story that China's censors are trying to hide.
其实进医院你还是很瘆得慌，你知道吗？那 A4 的那个纸上就是写着精神病院。
This abuse of psychiatric detention is illegal in China. I'm trying to find out why it's still happening.
这几年又滥用精神病收治的个案又多了很多。
Once diagnosed, victims are vulnerable to police intimidation for the rest of their lives.
To tell the truth, I was quite frightened about this, and I planned maybe I should leave China as soon as possible.
My name is Nima. I'm a journalist and filmmaker. In summer 2024, I was contacted by someone I'd met in Shanghai. I'm calling him K to protect his identity.
Hello, do you have the contact information of reporters outside of China? I need it urgently.
K told me a story I'd not heard before, a clue to what happened to those who criticized China's COVID lockdown.
我在疫情刚爆发的时候说出正确的话。我说防疫措施侵犯人的基本权益，使人不能就医吃饭。警察来把我抓走，我被警察用猪笼车送到精神病院去折磨。然后他们就说我有心理问题，关押我。
Wow. I was skeptical of what Kay told me. This was somebody that contacted me out of the blue, told me a very extreme, outlandish story. We did speak every day though for a month, and then all of a sudden he went offline.
I lived in Shanghai for almost a decade, so I was shocked to see my old street, Wulamuchi Road, become the center of Shanghai's anti-lockdown protests. Tensions boiled over after months of strict lockdowns. One of my friends was even padlocked into their apartment. People had had enough of being locked up in their homes or being sent to quarantine centres. They held up blank pieces of paper in defiance of strict censorship rules. It was the first time I had seen or heard people in China openly criticizing the authorities in this way.
The Chinese authorities have begun cracking down on anti-government protests which have spread to cities across the country.
The police started making arrests. I tried contacting people on the ground, but they were too scared to talk. 2 years on, I found a Twitter thread from a white paper protester who had recently fled China. Like Kay, he also claimed he'd been sent to a psychiatric hospital, and he was now posting videos of his calls with police showing how he was still being intimidated.
喂，你好。喂。你们究竟把我的家人怎么了？威胁一个啊，威胁恐吓一个刚刚逃出中国的在新西兰的学生，是不是啊？去威胁恐吓他的家人，那个都没空理啊。
I've just been getting ready to get on my flight to New Zealand to meet Junjie, speak to him in person and find out more. On my way to the airport. It's a 15-hour flight until I get to Junjie in Dunedin. Hi, Junjie. 你好。
你好。
Can I come in?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
At that time, I was so angry. COVID-19 hurt people a lot, and we hope that Xi Jinping he could stop the harmful policing. So I plan to protest next day morning, maybe 8 o'clock. I went to stand in front of the teaching building, but only then for 5 minutes. Because some professors and some workers in the university, they noticed me and they forced me to a meeting room. The university asked my father to bring me back to my hometown.
How was it when you first saw your father? Was he angry with you? What did he say to you?
He asked me, Junjie, why did you do these things? What would happen to you and our family? After we went back home, my father, he just called the police and he asked me to hand him my phone, my iPad and my laptop. December 1st morning, my father, he was talking to someone on the phone and I saw a black car. And there was 2 men. They forced me to get on the car.
And then what happened?
They sent me to the mental hospital. And the doctors told me that I was in a very serious mental disease. I have to stay here for the treatment. Then they tied me on a bed. I tried to, yeah, and sorry,
It's okay.
I can't explain it.
Do you want to say it in Mandarin or you don't want to say it at all?
他们说你在精神分裂症。每次想到这个事情，那种恐惧感就是你真的想不到，就随随便便可以说，因为你对政府有意见，你对共产党有意见，你就是有精神病。因为不只是你，包括那些护士、医生，他们反复的在跟我强调，就是你就是因为对党有意见，对政府有意见，所以你就有精神病。我觉得真的很恐怖，很恐怖。我真的从没想过这些事情会发生在我身上。我感受到就是，抱歉，我有时候我真的不知道如何用语言去形容。
Junjie's medical records show he was hospitalized for 2 weeks and prescribed antipsychotic drugs. What do you think your parents thought about this diagnosis? Do you think they agreed?
Even till today, I still didn't know their real thoughts. Yeah. I think my father, he was forced by policemen because he is a member of CCP and he works for the government, so he had to make a choice.
just wrapped on our first day shoot with Junjie. And it was really tough. It was really emotional for him to have to go back through that period of his life. And I wonder how many other people, protesters, experience the same type of treatment and detention in psychiatric units that Junjie faced.
We're just on our way to pick up Junjie. I think it's really hard for him to drag up these memories. So today we're going to get a change of scenery and drive out to the world's southernmost stupa. My dad's Tibetan, and Junjie told me that a few years before his detention he had become Tibetan Buddhist, and that his faith really helped him during his ordeal. So I want to ask him more about that.
It's about several years ago. I have some Tibetan friends. He was studying in Beijing, and he introduced a Tibetan temple to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Then I remember every morning I just pray for Tsongkhapa Lama.
How did that help you?
It make me calm down.
Talking about his experience is still a sensitive subject for Junjie.
How was your mental health at that time? Do you understand?
Sorry. I don't have any mental disease, okay. They forced me to take medicine, and they beat me, they tied me on the bed, and they hurt me a lot.
It's totally valid to be angry. I mean, that was my point.
So sorry for this. It's my fault, sorry.
Junjie, it's not your fault.
You know, sometimes I think most foreign people, they can't understand what happened in China. If you enter government, you are in mental disease. It was stated by the policemen, doctors or nurses. They just follow the rules made by policemen.
The doctor told you that in the hospital, that
Yes.
it wasn't them that diagnosed.
In fact, at first, they never did any check on me. Just think, because you entered the government, so you have mental disease.
They just had a conversation with you about your political views?
They made a conclusion. Could you understand that?
Yes, yeah, they'd already decided. And the questions, were they about politics?
Some about politics. They just wanted to make me say something strange so that they can prove that I was in mental disease.
It was great to meet Junjie in person, but I think this trip has left me with more questions than answers. Why did this happen to Junjie and Kate? And how widespread is this practice? Recently, Chinese social media started buzzing with a new story. A woman called Li Yishui claimed she was detained in a psychiatric hospital after she accused a police officer of sexual harassment.
你跟他说你没有病，他说这里的人都说自己没有病。你跟他说你不想吃药，他给你从鼻孔灌到胃里边。你跟他说要不你弄死我得了吧，他说你这是抑郁症又加重了，我给你做电击治疗吧。
Her story has received 120 million views. She had also disappeared. What's going on? Getting information out of China is difficult, but I did find some clues in old news reports from 15 years ago.
被非法收治在精神病院长达4年。
One sensational story shows how a woman was hospitalized by her mother after an argument over money.
不久前，一个特殊的帖子在网络上流传，确切地说，这是一封来自精神病院的求救信。
我被关押在南通市第4人民医院，医生逼我吃2种以上的精神病药物，吃得我正常人感到全身酥软。
In a system with no oversight, almost anyone could remove problem people by detaining them in a psychiatric hospital. The media even came up with a name for it, Beijing Shenbing, or being mentally ill.
年啊，被精神病的事件是屡有发生。那所谓的被精神病啊，指的就是那些不应该被送到精神病院去，却被单位或者是家属强制的送进了精神病院。
To stop this abuse, China introduced legislation to protect patients' rights in 2012. The new regulations meant that people could only be forcibly detained for treatment if they were a risk to themselves or others. To police how effectively the new law worked, a group of citizen journalists called Civil Rights and Livelihood Watch documented ongoing abuses. Between 2013 and 2017, more than 200 people reported that they had been wrongfully hospitalized by the authorities.
我因为反映房屋合同侵权一案，多次把我送进黑监狱，送进劳教所，把我送进了郑州第8精神病院。4次精神病院鉴定是我偏执型，他们根本不把我当成人，随意的侮辱我。
Some activists risked filming in hospitals. They were investigating the disappearance of a veteran democracy activist called Song Zaimin.
宋在明他属于一个政治犯，对我们当时是去了，他那个医院在北京郊区是非常的偏僻的。其实进医院你还是很瘆得慌，你知道吗？
They searched the building for the psychiatric ward.
走上楼去，他就贴了一张，你知道那个 A4 的那个纸，A4 的那个纸上就是写着精神病院，就是这种东西，一看它就不是正规的精神病医院。
They knocked on the door.
就是敲门，然后那个门开了。
But the nurses told them visiting hours were over.
我们这儿都是周日早上开。
平时不让看是吗？
Song Zaimin, the activist they were looking for, suddenly appeared at the door.
宋在明正好去上厕所出来，正好路过那个门口，听见有人喊他。3个人就往里面拉那个门，我们就外面2个人拉着，就对抗嘛。我们边对抗边交流，就这样。
The activists accused the staff of breaking the law.
如果你们不要这样的话，这是你们这医院的违法经营的，你们医院在犯法，你们知道吗？对，你们是犯法，你们知道吗？现在给你们俩，你们知道吗？
那个门就嘣就关上了，就这样就结束了。然后我们赶紧就出来，就打车，就往北京市里面跑。就是你采访的素材还是想提前传送出来嘛？就是大概也就是我们这个报道之后10来天，半个月，然后宋在明就出来了。
Following his release, they interviewed Song to find out why he was detained.
他们公安来的，说我怎么着发那个帖子，微信里边，召集同城聚会，或者说是创造民主中国呀，就跟那鸟似的在笼子里关着。精神病迫害是他们应该是他们最近一段时间常用的手段了，因为这个比较方便，不需要任何法律手续，也不需要律师，也不需要家属，也不需要你认罪什么的，什么也不用，我应该是自由人。他没有权利限制我，依照精神卫生法，他是自愿住院治疗。就是如果你要是有病的话，还是自愿住院治疗呢，何况我这没病呢，我也不需要他治疗。
In 2024, Song Zaimin was hospitalized for the 5th time. His hospital records detail why. The patient once again made false statements on the internet, criticized the Communist Party, shouted slogans and organized illegal meetings. He was admitted to our hospital for involuntary treatment. China's mental health law was meant to have cleaned up the system. The mental health law states that it's a violation to treat somebody who's not unwell. It doesn't seem to have worked. I found a new case, hospitalized last year, now trying to hold the police accountable through the courts. To protect his identity, we have used artificial intelligence to change his face and voice. We're calling him Li, not his real name.
朋友们，大家好！今天我收到了人民法院一次性告知书，我的诉讼请求第1项就是关于我被公安局非法鉴定精神病以及非法关押精神病医院45天的事情。
Li is already monitored by the authorities. Meeting him in China is too risky, so we arranged to meet in Hong Kong.
到香港去的回来的过程，我都担心随时会被他们以各种各样的理由进行扣留。哎呀，这倒是的，下起大雨来了，也是个麻烦。没带雨伞，也没有带抗球的衣服。
Police place people they think could disturb public order under digital surveillance. If Li is on their watch list, just booking a train ticket could alert the police.
正在过深圳东的火车站闸口， 7号线道上沙子下车，这样才可以去罢免签证。我已经赶到了福田区公安分局出境那个中心，那就可以在机器上面进行签证。这样已经是香港的地铁站。
But even in the relative safety of Hong Kong, there are risks. New laws have made it a hostile place for journalists, so we arranged to meet away from the security cameras. Li got into trouble when he attended a vigil for the former premier, Li Keqiang, a popular politician who until recently was the second most powerful man in the Chinese Communist Party. His sudden death in November 2023 triggered an outpouring of grief across China.
现场的人是非常多，花也非常的多，整个的气氛总体来说是感觉是比较悲痛的。
Li took the opportunity to protest. He had prepared a sign criticizing the local police.
What happened when you held up your piece of paper?
我白纸一举起来的时候，立马就有人开始控制我的两个胳膊了，场景还是比较混乱的。
And then what happened next?
那天晚上审问我，审问了很久，但是给我做笔录也没有任何违法行为，所以他们就没办法把我弄去行政拘留，所以他们直接的送进那个精神病院了。他们的车开到那个精神病院门口的时候，我就明白了。那个时候是感到非常非常的惊讶。我还问了我们那个就是带头的审问我的派出所所长，我说你们是不是经常干这样的事情？他没有回答。
你进去精神病院的时候，你感觉怎么样？
第一时间感觉到是非常恐惧的。他们同样是把我五花大绑的绑在床上，手脚全部固定在病床上的。我医生立马就想起来要求公安提供一个就是合法的手续，就是入院手续，意思就是要求家属要签字的。
你的爸爸为什么签字？
他说是警察到我家里去之后，直接把他从床上拉过去的，就是强制性必须要去公安局，因为我父亲认知很低，他本身不认识字。然后呢，还有一点就是，他是非常听那个公安跟政府的话的。
How did you eventually get out of the psychiatric detention unit?
我的主治医生第二天跟我面对面沟通之后，他就直接说，他说我认为你没有任何疾病，他说你可以回去的，通知你的签字的人过来签字就可以走人。但是医生他同时也通知了公安。所以呢，我父母想过来签字也签不成，因为公安非是盯着他不允许签字，所以就没办法辞去。
Li was detained for 45 days. He worries that the diagnosis he was given will affect his prospects, giving the authorities an unfair power over him that they can exercise whenever they want.
Why have you decided to take the police to court?
如果我不起诉警察的话，等于我默认了精神病，这个对我未来的生活会产生很大的影响，包括人身自由。因为警察他可以随时以这个理由，随时把我无条件的关进去。自己的权利都不敢争取的话，那感觉就类似于行尸走肉了。
Li is fighting his own case because there has been a crackdown on human rights lawyers in China.
各位好。
However, Huang Shuitao, a lawyer involved in drafting China's mental health law and famous for standing up for patients' rights, agreed to give Li advice.
你告公安有什么？
他公安把我送进去，公安不给我出来，都是他违法犯罪。
你怎么知道？
构陷嘛。
他送你进去有没有书面证据？
有。
这个医院有给你做这个诊断吗？结论是什么？
结论是好像是双向情感障碍。
有这么严重？
哎， 他想问我什么都可以，这我能理解的。
没任何手续吗？
对呀，没有手续嘛，对呀。
有了全国的精神卫生法之后，那这种行为就不合法了。
对。
所以现在要挑战他，其实是他们是有法律风险。我只能这么说，打不打得赢另外说。
是。
但是它的违法性就明摆在那儿了。他们只会对一些弱者下手，对真正的强者他们也不敢下手。
I wanted to know why the police needed relatives, like Lee's father, to sign his hospital admission papers.
这种情况我遇到挺多的。我相信这是警察为了回避自己的责任，又想掌权。
The police seem to be using this system to detain protesters without needing evidence.
在很多的个案里边，我直接把那个签字的人列为民事案件的被告，那他可能是为了避免这个直接署名的法律风险，所以就强迫家人去签字。
Have you seen it being used often for people who are protesting or writing comments online?
有发生，这种行为以前很常见，是因为把扰乱公共秩序的都可以把他送进精神病医院，以前是合法的，甚至是在精神卫生法的这个立法草稿里边的，就是作为合法的收治条件，我们是特意把它删除了，因为我们觉得扰乱公共秩序的这个条款是特别容易被滥用。那自从有了这个精神卫生法之后，这种情况其实是有法律风险的。
With almost no oversight, Lawyer Huang believes that this abuse is getting worse.
这几年又可能也是因为民间力量的这个衰弱，滥用精神病收治的个案又多了很多，不仅仅是警察，我觉得稍微有一点权力的人都可以滥用。
Lee wants to stop the police using his medical record as a reason to hospitalize him again. So while in Hong Kong, he plans to get an independent psychiatric assessment.
现在在准备来去那个精神心理科医生，跟他们对一下话，确认到底我有没有精神病。既开心又感觉到很悲哀，一个正常的人却不得不到处找医生，证明自己没有精神病。他有过很多的履历与头衔，应该很专业。
I met Lee following the appointment to see how it went.
精神病评估的结果是什么？
医生跟我说，他说我只能对你今天的状态进行评估，你没有任何问题。
现在你感觉怎么样？你如释重负吗？
总体来说肯定会稍微开心一些，但谈不上如释重负，因为未来的路会变成什么样子，我都不是很清楚的。说不定他们会随时以任何其他的名义把我再弄进去，是很难说的。
I'm on my way back to Singapore and a little bit overwhelmed actually after this trip. You know, it's emotionally draining to speak to people who are, you know, still going through the suffering, the fallout from that. And it also just makes me think about what could be happening to Kay. It's been 6 weeks now since I've heard from him. And yeah, I would really just like to get an understanding of what's going on.
Back home, I find a lead. China has guidelines on managing mentally unwell people who disturb public order, referred to as troublemakers in official documents. For patients posing a serious risk to public security, if the family do not cooperate, the emergency team should try to persuade them. Do a good job of persuading the patient's relatives to send the patient to hospital. Now, I've heard this type of situation from Lee and from Junjie, but now I've seen it written in this official document. It feels like the police are trying to sidestep the courts, which means there's no effective oversight or accountability. I want to know more about what happens to the activists in these psychiatric units. Many survivors claim they were subjected to electroshock therapy. Activist Jie Zhen said it happened to him. He now lives in Los Angeles and in his spare time organizes demonstrations highlighting China's human rights abuses.
我们今天做一场活动，是关于这个中国政府精神病医院迫害这个人权异议人士。我们现在先去那个我们一个放一些活动的一些物料的一个仓库，和其他的一些义工，我们先集合。 准备完毕，我们就去人流量最大的一个地方——洛杉矶好莱坞那个星光大道，做一个活动，关于是声援这个中国政府被精神病迫害的一些受害者，都做一个展示。活动信息、各种流程全在里面。
Jie claims that his activism makes him a target.
这段时间就是他们对我的威胁，这种恐吓还是蛮频繁、蛮多的。所以说，我包括今天就是准备了很多一些保护自己的一些装备，
也包括防弹衣啊、警用摄像记录仪啊，还有各种电棒啊、电警棍啊。
那么本身受害者、幸存者，我能侥幸出来一种责任，来帮他们。那么还有那么多人关在里面。 在精神病医院里面，你永远没有希望。这种行为上这么一种展示吧，它比纸质这些资料更容易让观众了解，这个事件的这个残酷性。这是我们要做的。那么这也是给中国政府当局一个施压一种方式。
She was arrested by Chinese national security agents. Then she was locked in a mental hospital.
Jie told us that in July 2018, he took part in factory worker protests.
没有工资，我们怎么养活我们的家人和小孩？我们就想加一点工资，老板还要说我们是闹事，我们加点工资有什么错？没错，没错。
He claims he was interrogated by police for 3 days, then taken to a psychiatric hospital.
那个时候是我当时对国保还有他们交接的医务人员嘛，走的是那种货气。我一看这铁门，我就感觉这就肯定是管辖室，因为它跟不同于其他那种病房嘛，就非常挺戒备森严的。进入去以后，国保当时是说的是说，这个人很危险啊，你们最好是加强这个给他管理啊，先把我固定在床上给我先绑起来了。我其实确实是很害怕，他有时候带他这是很紧很紧的，你想稍微活动一下身体，你都很难去活动。然后后面那个护士过来嘛，说你这个什么病你知道吧？我就说没什么病，他说你还没什么病啊？你在这边都说没有病，小推车嘛，推过来，他那个药，盖一个盖的，然后就是倒上这种药丸，应该是3种药，给我吃完。这个吃了就是你精神就可以就混乱，反正就是没有更多力气了。
Jie told us that after a week in the hospital, he refused to take any more drugs and fought with hospital staff. He was told he was causing trouble and sent for electroconvulsive therapy.
看是各种固定，他们就是给我把头部，它是2个那种的电流那种仪器戴上，我记得还擦了他东西吧，戴上它全部都完事以后，你再闹，然后就这一电，这我就那痛苦感真的是从头到脚，整个身体不是自己的，那疼的这真的是，它电一下然后停一下，电一下停一下，我都昏死过好几次，就是整个就会感觉像昏死过去一样。
ECT is an internationally accepted treatment for a small number of mental illnesses. However, studies from China show that rates of ECT use are many times higher than other parts of the world. In 2019, China introduced new measures to limit its use, stating that it should only be administered with consent and under general anesthetic. Jie told us he was discharged after 52 days. He fled China without his medical records, so we haven't been able to verify his account.
是地狱走了一圈，在里面关押，你不知道什么时候能释放你，它没有一个期限，有可能1个月，也可能是10年，甚至是一辈子。
2 months after being released from hospital, Junjie protested again. This time with fireworks. Months after COVID, tensions were still running high, and people were angry about a ban on fireworks over Chinese New Year.
I just recorded a video and someone else posted on the social media. It's the Chinese New Year. I was arrested again.
Junjie was charged with picking quarrels and troublemaking, the catch-all crime used to silence criticism. He was forcibly hospitalized again.
During the 2 months, the policemen, they come to see me several times. And they asked me to sign on some fields. Yeah.
And what was that for?
They didn't allow me to read it. I just saw the title. In China, we call it 寻衅滋事. It's like a troublemaker. Sorry, I think it's better for me to speak in Mandarin.
Yes, please.
这些文件后来也是被我父亲拿走了，我父亲也拒绝向我展示这些。Finally, the doctor, he said that the policeman told him that I can leave the hospital.
So they just let you go?
Yeah.
Did they give you medicines to take?
Yes. And sometimes they even would go to my home to check it.
How often did they go to your home?
At first, almost every week. But sometimes they didn't go to see me, but maybe just only see my father or just call my father to check it.
Community mental health services in China provide follow-up care for people living with mental illness. However, there is a heavy emphasis on control. They call it maintaining social harmony, with health workers and police closely monitoring troublemakers.
Make regular visits to troublemaking patients. Ask the guardian to make sure the patient takes medication.
They followed up on Junjie too, regularly contacting his father to see how he was getting on. Junjie recorded one of these calls.
这个有交流正常的还是正常的交流？那快尽快啊！好。
Did you continue to take the medicine all that time?
Yes.
How long was that?
From April, maybe after I was released until August. To tell the truth, taking medicine make me feel like my brain was quite a mess.
Did you ever try and stop taking the medicine?
I couldn't do this when I was in hospital. The nurses, if you didn't want to take the medicine, they will like this.
Force you?
And even I was released, my father, because the policemen, they would go to my home and check it. So I have to take it.
During one of these police checkups, Junjie got scared they would force him back into hospital.
Most times, the policemen, they wear plain clothes, but I don't know why This time they drove a police car to my home. To tell the truth, I was quite frightened about this. And I planned that maybe I should leave China as soon as possible.
3 days later, he made his move.
On August 16th early morning, I told my parents that I'd like to go back to my university in Beijing to take some clothes and some baggage. But in fact, I went to Shenzhen and then I went to Hong Kong. I bought my plane tickets and fortunately, on August 18th early morning, I arrived in Auckland.
So you didn't get to say goodbye to your parents or your friends?
No.
On his way to New Zealand, Junjie started posting about his ordeal in the psychiatric hospital. He says within minutes of his arrival, he received a call.
Just maybe 10 minutes passed and my father and the policeman in China, they called me.
Wow. Junjie told us the police threatened him. He gave us the recording.
第一，你越发的多，你的家人就受苦受难的越多。你坚持你的言论自由，你认为你在新西兰没有办法你想错了，一定有办法你。
They asked me to go back to China. My father asked me to delete everything I post and go back to China.
We spoke to Junjie after his move to New Zealand. He told us that the police were threatening his family in an attempt to silence him.
我的母亲就曾经多次给我发短信，或者说给我打电话。喂，妈妈。她在电话中告诉我，在我刚刚抵达新西兰后，我的家人就被公安带走了。
他们到底对你们做了什么了？
我一直认为，我的所作所为与任何人都没有关系，对我的家人，我也真的希望他们能够平安。但我真的是感到非常的愤怒，为什么中共他要搞这种连坐法？为什么要让我的家人他来承担一样的代价？
Junjie and his family had been thrown into turmoil. It was clear what role the police played, but to what extent were the doctors complicit? I'm on my way to meet a colleague. She's gone undercover to line up calls with psychiatrists in China to understand why doctors are working with police to detain protesters like Junjie for psychiatric treatment.
患者记录出现异常，好大夫医生助理评估后。
Using an online doctor platform called Good Doctor, we're targeting doctors working at the hospitals we know are involved with forced hospitalizations by police. We've made appointments with their psychiatrists.
你好，是医生吗？
To avoid suspicion, we've invented a nephew and explained to the doctors that he's been hospitalized for posting anti-government comments online.
你们那边的医院有没有遇到这个情况呢？就是这些由警察送到，然后把病人送到你们的医院里面治疗的呢？
有。
The doctor confirmed that posting politically sensitive comments online is seen as troublemaking.
因为他这种，比如网上发一些言论，如果是涉及到刑事立案的程度，那可能一个医院要有诊断，就是这个孩子到底是什么病。精神科有一个入院的形式叫肇事肇祸，比如他在外面持刀伤人，这是一种肇事肇祸的行为。好，那公安认为他在网上的不当评论可能也涉嫌这种扰乱社会秩序之类的，性质应该是一样的。
I was shocked to hear the psychiatrist admit that posting anti-government comments was grounds for admission to his hospital. We then spoke to a doctor from Junjie's hospital to ask why police are involved in checking up on patients accused of troublemaking.
他们从社会治安的角度去吧，你是一个症状记录的，然后公安可能要到家里关心一下，你下次出去要服药哦，你不服药，等一下再出去违反社会或者违法了。
In Junjie's case, he says that
the police did check up on him, and that is why he felt that he had to leave the country for good.
Yes, some daily surveillance or some sort of monitoring, sometimes also quite intense.
Yeah, it's very invasive. Speaking with my colleague and hearing from the Chinese psychiatrist yesterday was really the final puzzle piece that was missing for me in this journey. He confirmed that, yes, doctors are working with police in China to detain people in psychiatric units for troublemaking, especially if this trouble is linked to anything political.
While victims like Li can take the hospitals and police involved to court, they face many obstacles. After appealing the verdict on his case, Li receives their decision by post.
现在马上打给大家看一下，这是驳回上诉，维持原裁定。整个的裁定过程基本上都是胡说八道的。我们经常能听到我们的领导人在说那个依法治国，然后我们就认为我们平时遇到违法的事情，我们是不是可以依法维权呢？那我们做梦也想不到被他关到精神病院里面去，所以说就会慢慢的越来越感受到一种绝望。
Li's case is unusual. I'm looking at the official website for court decisions. We found another 112 people prepared to take the authorities to court. They also claimed they'd been illegally detained in psychiatric hospitals. More than 40% of these were linked to protests against the authorities. Only 2 won their case. But the site is censored. 5 other cases we'd investigated are not in the database. China's mental health law was meant to stop this abuse. But it seems that troublemakers are still silenced in psychiatric hospitals. For those brave enough to seek justice, the legal system seems stacked against them.
What I have learned from the people that I have spoken to is that they want justice, accountability, and transparency from a system that is perpetuating a culture of self-censorship, obedience, and discrimination against independent thought.
觉得这里边最关键的是，如果没有了民间力量的博弈，那个人的权利和自主权就可以被剥夺至今，而且都是为了你好。
If you could go back in time, would you not protest?
If I could go back to 2022, maybe I will not protest because my whole life was changed.
It's extremely difficult for me to forgive these people who hurt me, but I just want justice. The police, the hospital staff, and the government, they hurt me. I cannot forgive the party, but I can forgive the person inside. I do hope that maybe in the future, China could change.